What was the world like before Noah? What was the world really like before Noah's flood? Was it just an ancient society that became violent, or something much darker? Genesis tells us that the earth was filled with corruption and violence. But ancient traditions imagined that world as broken on every level. Heaven, earth, humanity, power, knowledge, everything had gone out of order. Today, we're going to explore the world before the flood, clearly, carefully, and without internet panic mode. We'll focus on three things: corruption, power, and why judgment came. Part 1. A world filled with violence. Genesis does not describe the pre-flood world as innocent or peaceful. It describes a world where human wickedness had become widespread. Violence was not a small problem. It had filled the earth. This means the flood story begins with moral collapse, not random disaster. The world had become strong on the outside, but rotten at the core. Ancient people often imagined corruption as something that spreads like a disease. One compromise becomes another. One act of violence becomes a pattern. And eventually, the whole society forgets what righteousness even looks like. That is the first key idea. The world before the flood was morally collapsing. Part 2. Broken boundaries. Before the flood. Genesis 6 introduces one of the strangest details in the Bible. The sons of God, the daughters of men, and the Nephilim appear right before judgment. That placement matters. This mystery is connected to the crisis before the flood. Some readers see heavenly rebellion, others see human rulers abusing power, others see the faithful line compromising with a corrupt world. Whichever view you take, the theme is clear. Boundaries were broken. Heaven and earth, righteousness and corruption, power and restraint. The ancient world before the flood was a world where limits were rejected, and when limits disappear, power becomes dangerous. This is why the Nephilim became such a haunting symbol. They represent strength without humility, power without accountability. Ancient texts like Enoch expanded this world with watchers, giants, and forbidden knowledge. But those texts should be treated as background, not as final authority. The Bible gives the foundation. The world was corrupt, violent, and ready for judgment. Part 3. Knowledge without wisdom. In many ancient traditions, the world before the flood was not primitive. It was powerful, skilled, ambitious, and deeply unstable. That is a frightening combination. Progress without wisdom can destroy faster than ignorance. A tool can build a home or tear one down. Knowledge can serve life or feed pride. The problem is not only what humans know, it is who they become. That is why the pre-flood world feels strangely modern. We also build powerful systems before mastering our own hearts. We ask, can we do this? Before asking, should we? That is the warning behind the ancient world before the flood. Part 4. Why judgment came. The flood is not presented as a random act of destruction. It is judgment against a world that had become consumed by evil. But even in judgment, the story includes mercy. Noah becomes a sign that God had not abandoned righteousness. While the world collapses, one man listens, obeys, and builds. That contrast is the heart of the story. A world that ignored warning, and a man who took warning seriously. So the ancient world before the flood was not just strange, it was a mirror. It shows what happens when desire rejects limits. It shows what happens when power loses humility. It shows what happens when a civilization becomes impressive, but not righteous. And it asks whether we are any wiser than the world before us. Quick recap. Before the flood, the world was filled with corruption, violence, broken boundaries, and abused power. Genesis gives the foundation, while ancient traditions show how deeply people wrestled with the mystery. The message is simple. A world without wisdom cannot survive its own power. And Noah's Ark reminds us that obedience can survive what corruption cannot. If you enjoy cinematic breakdowns of biblical mysteries and ancient texts, subscribe to the Lost Scrolls. In the next episode, we'll explore Noah himself, the man who built while the world ignored the warning.